when I saw that sale come through, and I'm not a Wander holder, but I assumed that the other 99 just kind of felt like that. So that's how I would have felt. What's up, Candy fam? My name's Nate, that's David, and this is the Talking Candy Weekly Update. Each week, we sit down for a while and talk about what you need to be paying attention to in the world of candy. And while David and I each have collections of our own, none of this is financial advice. We are just here to have a good time. David, it's Titan Week number 2. How you doing?
Doing good, and it feels good to be back. Been away for a couple weeks, having to record on the road. It's nice to be home.
Yep. David and I finally had the opportunity to meet in person a couple weeks ago while you were traveling. That was great. Got to spend some time with Jeff Rathgaber and some other members of the community in New York. But good to have you back in place here and with all the quality checks in place with our video and audio and all that. So good to be there. And so let's start by taking a look at what we have going on this week in candy. And just a couple quick little updates here. So we are finally upon the WWE NFTs. We've got our very first candy and WWE NFT coming out. It's actually out right now. I've seen people already tweeting it out. And all you have to do is go spend $50 on Fanatics website. They have a new WWE portion of the website. Must be a new partnership for them as well. So spending $50 gets you this NFT of a wrestling belt right here. So very first drop, pretty cool, pretty reasonable price point. So if you're into that, take a look at it and go get yourself that first one. It'll be interesting to see how many of those get minted. And then...
Well, I was going to say, if it's anything like the silver bust, tying it to physical purchases can really lead to a lot of extra copies coming into circulation.
Definitely,
it's thousands of those back in December.
Yeah, it's a nice way to do it because it kind of makes the NFT free in a way because you're getting something for your $50 that you're used to already in terms of physical goods, and people can wrap their head around that. So it's a good way to onboard people and still give them an NFT, something different to collect and give them an idea of what that might look like. So cool concept there. I've been excited about this WWE stuff coming out. It's not of particular fandom to me, but I think that it's cool stuff. I think that it's a cool platform for a new NFT branch. So it'd be cool to see what else they put out. In addition to the WWE stuff, we've got the racing drops that happened in relation to Richard Petty over the last week. We had the Asphalt Busts sell out on the 19th and the Rising Sun. What did you call these? What was the word that they used for these?
Cinematograph?
Cinematograph. The 100 Cinemagraphs sold for $43 each today. Those sold out. The Asphalt Busts sold out as well. And there is a Petty Blue 1-of-1 bust being auctioned off on Bitsky, as is the case with a lot of these drops, the multiple different avenues that you can acquire these NFTs. So this actually just ended 2 minutes ago. That's funny that I pulled it up right there. So $4,500. This is Tuesday night, July 26th. So that just went for $4,500, $43. Pretty cool. And that's the 1-of-1 variation of that. So there is a little bit worth note on these asphalt busts, however. There were only 85 of them. They sold for $200 a piece. But if you go into the marketplace, it's not the prettiest picture because we've got a floor of 125. We've got 4 listed below the 200 that they sold for a week ago. And then you've got a handful right around the 200 that they sold for before creeping up into the low 200s. So it looks like there may have been a lot of flipping intention on this product in general. We know we've seen mixed results with some of the non-MLB products up to this point. Some of them have done well. Some of them have had things left to be desired. So it'll be interesting to see with some of these getting picked up over time on the low end if the price of these will rebound in general. So I just don't really know anything about racing. It's not my jam. It's not something I'm knowledgeable on. So I try and stay away from things that I don't know too much about. But figured it was worth knowing. I don't know if you wanted
One
to add
thing
anything to that.
that needs to be mentioned, and it could be an explanation for why the asphalt bust has seen a dip, is the original purchaser of those 85 busts will also receive a 1/64th scale diecast signed by Richard Petty. And so I think it's a situation where at least some people wanted to be the original purchaser, not for the NFT, but to get that diecast, to get that signed diecast. And so that was kind of baked into that $200 price point. And now that the secondary purchaser isn't going to receive that reward, that could account for the drop. As opposed to the Cinematograph, that's the first of 3 that are going to be released over the next couple of weeks. And there's going to be a chaser tied to owning all 3 Cinemagraphs. And so even though they cost less, $43 a piece, and just 100 of them, I think they're more likely to hold their value at least until they take the snapshot for that chaser for owning all 3. And so that's, I think, kind of an explanation for why that's played out the way it is. There was already a reward tied to the asphalt bust, and people are kind of cashing out now that they've got that reward coming.
Gotcha. Good information. Did not know that. Did not realize that. So thank you for that addition. So yeah, that's what we got going for the Richard Petty collection. Cool to see that one of one just went. But then in addition to WWE and Richard Petty, we also had a pretty significant announcement this week in the form of a Hall of Fame icon series. So next Tuesday, August 2nd, we're going to have a pack drop. And let me pull up here. We've got two different versions of these packs. So we've got a grand total of 6,500 packs being sold. 5,000 of those packs are going to be of the 4 icon variety. So you'll have 4 Hall of Fame icons in those packs. And then the 1,500 pack subset, which will go for $250 each, will have 10 icons in each. So it breaks down to $25 per icon, regardless of which pack you get. So it's the same unit price on each pack, but the difference is that on the $250 packs, you're guaranteed a rare player, while in the smaller $100 packs, you're only guaranteed an uncommon player, although you only have the potential to pull one of the ultra rare Ken Griffey Jr. inserts in the cheaper packs. So there are 24 Griffey icons randomly inserted in those 4 icon packs for $100, and those will not be found in the larger 10 icon packs. It's a little bit of a head scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fully understand, like, I don't feel super inclined towards one versus the other. It's strange that the unit cost is the same. It's strange that the Griffey inserts aren't in both. So it's a little bit confusing, but at the same time, I'm excited about it. Like, I think that this is a cool idea.
I would expect that they would have, typically bulk pricing, you're paying less per card to buy a larger pack. But in this case, it's working out to $25 per card, regardless of if you're getting 4 or 10. So you're not really benefiting from ponying up for those larger packs, except in that you'd be guaranteed a rare. But depending on what the rare odds work out to anyways, you'd get 2.5 times as many packs of the smaller packs. So it might end up being a wash, depending on how prevalent those rares are, even in the smaller packs.
Right. Yeah. So we don't know what the breakdown is of rarities. We don't know if it's similar to the leadoff series, etc. So that will tell us some things. It's possible that rare is much more desirable than what we've been conditioned to think, because currently rare is nice, but it's not incredible. Epic really is that threshold where you've pulled something that's really worth being excited about, unless it's a rare of a particularly high demand player. So to me, unless we don't understand that rares are more rare than we think, the Griffey insert is the bigger pull
Hmm.
for me. I would rather have a shot at that because that just sounds like the coolest thing that you could get. So there's still plenty that we don't know. We don't know about limits on packs. It's possible that securing 10 icons in a $250 pack is an asset. It's possible that I think that these are going to sell out rather quickly. There's only 6,500 of them. It's a very unique new concept. It's unlike anything that Candy has put out yet in the baseball space. So I would imagine that these sell out. I don't know if it takes an hour. I don't know what the queue is going to look like. I'm not sure. But to me, with what we know, I think I would rather be stacking these $100 packs with a chance at Griffey. But regardless, I think it's all exciting stuff. So the 30 players are listed here.
Hmm.
So for the audio only listeners, I'll just rip them off real quick. We've got Feller, Biggio, Rizzuto, Spahn, Kiner, McCovey, Murray, Necro, Palmer, Sandberg, Seaver, Ozzie Smith, Duke Snyder, Stargell, Sutter, Frank Thomas, Yunt, Aparicio, Bench, Brock, Brett, Carter, Fingers, Ford, Glavine, Griffey, Catfish Hunter, Kaline, Larkin, and Tony Perez. So lots of good names on here. Depends what era you're from and what you're a fan of.
Hmm.
There's not a ton of newer names on here. There are some really awesome older names like Warren Spahn and Willie Stargell and Robin Yount and stuff like that. So I think there's a little something for everybody on here. I know that there are some names that are missing on here. Where's Ted Williams? Where's Babe Ruth? But I also think that those are the kind of guys that we could see getting the Jackie Robinson treatment and
Exactly.
having those individual types of drops where you've got the one of one busts. So I like this list here. I think there's a lot to be enjoyed in here. And I haven't actually taken a run through and looked at the team representation. I'm not sure. I know that there's not a Red Sox on here, which is a little bit of a bummer, but
Hmm.
it seems to be a decent amount of representation across the league. So a little something for
Three
everybody.
Cincinnati Reds jumps out as a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I got my one giant, so as long as I pull a McCovey, I'm set. Uh, One quick thing though, mentioning or taking a step back to the mint counts, um, if because there's those 24 inserts, if they're gonna behave the same way as the gold tickets, where they replace a core, something along those lines. I mean, it could go either way. They might be extra, or they might replace a core. But either way, the numbers right now, they don't exactly line up to be an even number per person. So I think we might see some other type of hidden gem just to make those numbers line up. Because with the 6,500 packs, we're looking at 35,000 total icons. And we might be subtracting 24 or adding 24 to that, depending on how the replacement for those inserts works. But it still doesn't work out to an even 30. And so I think there could be some other golden ticket style thing hidden in there that they just haven't announced yet. And so that could also kind of pull people back towards those 10-player packs if that's where they land.
Definitely. Yeah, so we also, in addition to that, have a little bit of a different breakdown in terms of what the core through legendary looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got this addition of 2 photos that runs from core to legendary. We haven't seen that yet. Don't exactly know what that means, what that's going to look like. They all have the player card. They all have 2 photos. The core does not have a video, which is what we've come to expect. The uncommon is where you get that video, but it looks like at epic you get 2 videos instead of just 1. At rare you add a narration, and then the epic still has the signature as we would expect, and the legendary is going to be the one of one. So a couple different elements in here. It'll be interesting to see what those look like. Again, this drop is next Tuesday, August 2nd. We don't have a time yet, I don't think. Have you heard anything about a time?
No, but I would assume since they've got the cinematograph coming out at 1 p.m. Eastern, that we'd be looking at more like a noon Eastern. So, something a little bit before that.
Hmm.
They might even space it earlier. Sometimes they go as early as 9 Eastern on some of these drops.
Right, we have
So it
seen
might
that.
be an early one.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Definitely an exciting new development. We knew that we were going to see some different things here. Uh, I'll pull up this. This was the teaser that they dropped. Quick little video. But yeah, we knew that we were going to see other styles of packs. We knew that we were going to see other styles of collectibles, and we've seen that in different forms. But this is kind of a cool hybrid between some of what we've seen so far. I love what these packs look like with the wood in the corners. So yeah, this should be an exciting day. Next week should be an exciting week. We have our third Titan burn on Monday, followed by this pack drop on Tuesday. So a lot to enjoy with Candy next week, and we will have a lot to talk about when we record next week. So very much looking forward to this. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to touch on that.
No, not on the Hall of Fame.
Cool. All right. So before we jump into Titan burning, which has been buried at this point, just wanted to quickly show these two polls that I put up on Twitter because I thought that they were interesting. They're questions that we've had many debates about. You and I have talked about it. We've talked about it with tons of guys in Discord. I've talked about it with my own buddies. And so decided to put out the polls of which cereal you would prefer to own. So the first one that went out was the number 2 versus the perfect. And I just used the example of 100 out of 100. And it was a pretty big landslide here. Little 70 to 30% on people preferring the 100 out of 100. I personally answered the number 2. I think that that's still how I feel, but these results are making me question it because obviously just understanding what the market thinks is useful too. So that is going to impact my opinion. And then on the other side of that was and this one's still live right now, but the last one got 200 votes and this one's pushing 150. So this one was the number 1 versus the jersey. And I thought that this one was going to be really close and it hasn't panned out that way. So number 1 getting about 70% of the votes compared to the jersey. I think that maybe if the question was posed on a specific player, let's say it was Ohtani or Trout or one of the top guys, I think that this would maybe be closer. But I guess across the board, when you're talking about just the entire the entire pool of players, number 1 is just the most easily identifiable. It's the most marketable. It's so clean. So that one won by a landslide as well. I think that tomorrow I'm going to throw up the perfect versus the jersey and see what people say. I think the jersey is going to win by a lot, but it'll be interesting to see if it's closer than expected. So just wanted to share those.
Now, I really agreed with, it looks like Lloyd Christmas was one of the first replies on that tweet about the number 1 versus the jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I agreed with what he said. For my favorite players, I'd prefer their jersey, but for anyone else, the number 1 is just the safe bet. And so I think in a vacuum, if you don't know all the details, you take the number 1. But yeah, if it's one of my favorite players, I would be much more likely to be interested in their jersey because I have a more emotional attachment to that number.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And, with a guy like GRIFFEY, the number 24, something like that is going to be a lot more substantial. Whereas some guys like, we just saw the Shane Bieber number 57 get sold. His Titan just sold. So we're going to touch on that stuff as well. But, not as exciting a number there. So depends on the player, but I like stuff like this. I just find it interesting. Just understanding what the market feels about different cereals and different types of NFTs. So wanted to quickly jump in here. Figured we would look at some of the biggest sales, and I think the way that you put it just before we hit record here was a good way to take a look at the health of the market, just in terms of big volume continuing to happen. So we have the ability now to sort by sold date as well as to sort by $500 plus. And so just taking a quick spin through here, we've seen a couple of the 21 icon packs, all-star packs go today, up over 700, pushing 800. The number 2 J-Rod Chaser went for 850 today. We saw a couple big 21 Epic sales yesterday. A Juan Soto Epic number 7 went for 2200. Torkelson. So still a lot of big sales happening. There's still a lot of big items moving across the different series, across the different collections. You can see another Jackie Robinson bust went here for 900 yesterday. Let's see, what does that put the floor at now?
Well, yeah, so that was the last person who was really itching to make a sale. We saw a handful of them the past month or two, and this was the last person who was really, aggressively pricing at that $900 price point, and the floor is 1,600 now after that, and there just doesn't seem to be, really any interest from any of us long-term holders to price any lower than that. We're confident and we're happy with that price where it's at.
Yeah, I mean this is definitely one of the more interesting pieces in Candy MLB to date. So we've got 36 sales so far. There's only 100 of these things, and we've got 26 listed. So that puts us at right around 60 accounted for. Obviously, some of the sales would have been the same cereals multiple times, but probably not a ton of overlap. So we are, to your point, getting down to a lack of motivation to sell here. So you said that we've got the 1,600 floor now with that sale, but after that we go right up to 2,000. So the jumps are significant. After those 2,000 listings, we go to 2,400. So yeah, this isn't an interesting place. You and I were both fortunate enough to get one of these, and we've just been sitting on it for the last few months. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in the collection. It would be a hard thing to part with, but definitely don't mind seeing the floor increase on it. So cool to see that sale go through. And yeah, I mean, lots of big sales. I don't know, were there any others in particular that had stood out to you? I can go back into the 500 plus here.
I'm sure there's a few that have happened in the past couple weeks that have kind of slipped under my radar, just being kind of taken a step back away from it, being able to pay as close attention. So I'll have to kind of sweep through and see what else I've been missing. But as I said, it's just a good way to stay on top of the health of the marketplace, keep an eye on kind of the pulse of how other people are valuing these big ticket items. And of course, the majority of products aren't in this price range, but it's still helpful to know that there are still buyers at all price ranges. It's not just $1 and $2 flips. There's people who are interested in these big tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. So before transitioning into Titans, we'll show right here, we've got the J-Rod 80 of 80. That went for $1,000 a couple days ago. And then this Wander Franco Titan, I think went for a criminally low price. The current floor on these is around $525. So for the perfect cereal to have gone for $630, I don't know how else to say it. It's frustrating to see that go for that low.
No, I agree. I think there were a few lower priced ones at that point, at the 350 range. And so I think the holder felt like they were getting a premium at 650, but it's so early to know where that line in the sand is going to be drawn. And ideally you want to be getting at least or around double for something like a perfect cereal. And if you haven't seen where things are going to settle, it's taking a big risk to sell early. And as these, not just Franco, but across the board, these Titan floors are kind of settling a bit higher than they initially appeared, creeping up as it were. And so that's the risk you take when you sell too early. You don't get that, that proper payout for your good cereal.
Yeah, we've said it before. Selling early and buying early are both very risky when you have a new product drop. You just don't quite know what the market thinks about it yet, and you are dealing with a flurry of very motivated sellers early on. There's a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot of people. There are a number of people that are always going to be there when a drop happens, and they're quickly looking to sell it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I am that person sometimes. It depends on the drop. If I don't particularly care about it, I might be in it to sell it quickly. But for something like Wander Franco Perfect Cereal, that feels like an area where patience would have been a beneficial thing to implement. But to each their own, not judging anybody. If you're looking to sell that on day one and that's where it was at, then by all means. So I think that's a good transition here into the top Titan sales of that batch of week one guys. And so these are the only 5 guys that can be sold so far because the second batch have not been truly minted and distributed yet. That's coming on Friday. But these were the 5 guys from week one. And the perfect cereal. So see, these are the top individual sale for each player and the floor prices. So that Wander Franco Perfect Cereal went for $630. That's the second highest Wander sale so far. The number 1 cereal also sold on day one when these were minted last Friday, and that went for $17.50. That feels a little bit more in line, although I would argue that feels a bit low as well. I think that if it were me and I were lucky enough to pull that, I probably would have listed it for close to double that if I was looking to sell it on day one. I really think that it may have pulled 3,000. I mean, the Epic Wander number 5, I believe, went for just shy of 3,000. The Core Wander number 1 went for around 1,500. I mean, these numbers are available. Had research been done, I don't think that this is what that goes for. So 1,750 for this. Now, do I think that the number 1 core should have gone for 1,500? Probably not. So these are difficult to price. They are one of a kind, truly, and it's tough to navigate. But the 1,750, just my knee-jerk reaction to it felt low. So I think that was a buy that purchaser is going to be happy about in the long run, regardless of what they decide to do with it. And then, as you can see, the top sale for the other 5 guys substantially lower, but still pretty cool to see when you consider what the cost of minting these Titans was. So the number 1 Cease went for $320. The number 1 BGO went for $265. The number 57 Jersey Cereal of Bieber went today for $201.57. And we haven't seen a particularly relevant cereal go for Jonathan India yet. So we just saw the number 15 go for $100, and that's the top India Titan sale to date. So those are your five top sales across our week 1 Titans, and just cool to see that we have had some big sales. Whenever you have a new mint, a new launch, you're gonna usually see these particularly desirable cereals move early on. Just somebody that had the good fortune of getting that randomized mint, turn around and take some profit, and somebody else gets to get a really cool collectible. So it's fun to watch.
I do agree. 1,750 seems low, and it's going to seem lower the more that floor price climbs. But the other thing it makes me think is that the reason why, the floor maybe started as low as it did was because someone led by example, listing the number 1 as low as they did. And because
absolutely,
especially with the number 1, yeah, someone can price lower than you, but no one can list a product better than you. There's only one number 1, and so you get the luxury of picking your price point. And when you pick a strong price point and you lead by example and you leave it there, then that's just informing the marketplace that this is a value that you can, even if it doesn't sell right away, it's just projecting that and allowing other people to react to that price point and maybe price in kind. And when the number 1 goes for 1,750, and number 1s, tend to be, I would say, you would hope for at least 5 times the core price for a number 1. And so maybe at the time, if there were listings for 300, 320, 350, then 1,750 might feel okay. But once we get to $500, $600 floor price, it feels less good. And I think that goes the same for the number 1 Cease and Biggio as well. Is, those are good numbers compared to their floor price right now, but you still, as the holder of that number 1, you want to project value with more confidence and not show that you're in a hurry to sell it by pricing so low and continually lowering your price. Pick a price that feels good and stand by it.
I don't mind the Cease and Biggio sales as much, especially when you consider you have to remember this, right? So you've got some people that bought their burn pile when these Titans were announced, and maybe they spent $70 on a Cease Epic or $70 on a Biggio Epic, but a lot of people pulled these cards or bought a Biggio Epic when they were $25, because I know that was a thing. So if your entry into your Biggio Titan was, say, $40, and you got lucky and pulled that number one, and you can turn that $40 into $265, there's your 5x plus right there. So you're comparing when we're looking at this chart and we're seeing Wander Franco on the same chart as Kevin Biggio, it's just two very different tiers of players, and that's nothing against Kevin Biggio, but it's Wander Franco. And so to your point, I think that the 1750 is responsible for that 525 floor. And I think that if that number one sells for 3,000, then you've got a floor sitting at around 1,000 right now with those Titans. And it's that fickle. It's that one sale, and it can dictate everything. And when I saw that sale come through, and I'm not a Wander holder, but I assumed that the other 99 just kind of felt like that. So that's how I would have felt if I was a holder. So it stinks, but it is what it is. That's how this works. It's collectibles. Everybody has a different opinion. There really isn't a right or a wrong. If you pulled an epic Wander and then you bought the pieces, and then you got lucky enough to get that number one, and now you've got 1750 candy balance sitting there, good for you, man. Like, that's a huge win. And I don't know what led up to that moment or what the education behind it is. You and I take this seriously. We're looking at all the little details, and so we have that perspective. But at the end of the day, to each their own. I just wish that it sold for a little bit more. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say on the sale specifically, but we're going to continue this burn talk with some additional conversation on the process itself. So are you good to jump into that?
I'm good on the sales. It's all been fairly encouraging. I don't think that anyone who paid for their pieces and was actually able to burn a Titan sold for less than they put their Titan together for. And so I think that's a very good start to the Titan burning season.
Yeah, I agree. In general, everything that we're seeing with Titans is super positive. Like, there's a huge resurgence in activity in the market. We're seeing floor prices rise. Obviously, some of it is artificial in the middle of the actual burning, but they're real sales. So how artificial is that, right? It's providing liquidity. There's a lot of different angles to be played. You can, we've been playing this all along. A lot of it is finally coming to fruition here, and it's created a lot of excitement. So, and it's created a lot of health for this market, for candy in general. So super positive. Also worth noting that anybody that is holding a Titan is going to get early access on August 2nd for the Hall of Fame pack drop. So we don't know what early access looks like. We don't know how many packs you can get. We don't know how many packs are going to be available. No idea what the advantage is, but they have stated that anybody holding a Titan is going to get early access to that. And it's also going to count for anybody that mints a Titan on August 1st. Even though you won't have it in your collection yet, they are going to take a snapshot of anybody that minted on the 1st. So if you're currently holding one, or if you mint something next Monday, you will get early access to the Hall of Fame drop. So keep that in mind. That being said, let's continue this conversation with the process itself. So I posted a video on Monday with my just kind of live experience, and I chopped it down significantly, otherwise it would have been too long. But my experience of going through the queue and then burning my first couple Titans. I did Buxton and I did Mancini. I also was selling some pieces on the side along the way, but these were the 5 main takeaways for me when going through that process, and now that I look back at it. So some of them are just black and white, and some of them are reflections. But the first one, first and foremost, was that I needed to clear my cache in order to get into the queue on the computer. I saw multiple people having this issue in Discord. I was fortunate enough to be paying attention to Discord, where somebody gave the idea to clear cache. It worked right away. It also looked like anybody that was doing it on mobile, it worked right away. So that was a frustrating thing to have happen. It felt like I was 5 minutes late to the party, simply because something wasn't working. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be something that is stopping somebody from getting into the queue, but that's how technology works, I guess. So that is something that you need to know. Clear your cache before you try and jump into the queue. Once you get into the queue, and I'll let you take the lead on this, but understanding the queue is very important. And I also think that it's worth noting that it could very well be a totally different setup next Monday compared to what it was this Monday. But for the sake of understanding the whole timeline, do you want to just explain a little bit about how the queue is working in current form?
Yes, and for me, it was pretty eye-opening yesterday to learn exactly how the queue process worked. It's counterintuitive to what I was expecting. In their original explanation, they did say it's a first come first serve queue to get into the Titan burning, and then you have 10 minutes to burn. Now, and I was incorrect in this, but my assumption at that point was that you had 10 minutes to burn for a particular player once you started to burn them. But that's not how it works at all. For those familiar with the page itself, you go into your collection first, and you go into the challenges page, and the queue is there. The queue is to get into the challenges page, the challenges part of the website. And then once you're there, that's when your 10 minutes begin, and you have 10 minutes to essentially do whatever you want. You can burn a copy of each of the available players that week during your 10 minutes. And then I believe they had an additional 5-minute window with which you couldn't burn the same player. And so, yesterday, for example, you could have, you sit through the queue, you get to the challenges page, and that's where you see the different players, and you go into their details, and you see how many points you have, and you actually do the burn. But your 10 minutes starts at the beginning of just getting into the challenger page, which is where the queue exists. And it's important to know that, because I don't think that was made explicitly clear. And I had been gone for a while, but I'd still been reading all the announcements, I'd still been watching the instructional video, and to me it was very unclear that that's how it worked. But it's 10 minutes at the start of getting to the challenges page through that queue to then burn as much as you can within that 10 minutes, with just the small caveat that you have to wait 5 minutes before you can burn a player a second time. Now, a lot of people took exception to that, because that meant that the earliest people to get through the queue, if they had enough points available, could be getting 2 copies of some of the best players. We saw someone yesterday craft 2 Miguel Cabreras, and we saw someone else craft 2 Trey Turners. And while other people are still waiting because they weren't early enough in the queue, it's kind of disheartening to see someone else not only get more than one overall, but get more than one of a top player while you're waiting your turn to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it is right now. There was a lot of discussion about it yesterday. There was a lot of feedback taken by Candy, and one thing that Candy has shown is that they're willing to adapt and change as needed, and I think we will see a change here. But and I've got a lot of opinions on what that change should look like exactly, but for right now, we're just talking about how it is, and how it is a queue to get to the challenges page, and then kind of a free-for-all after that point within that 10-minute window.
So just for a little context here, I'm going to pull up the Titan Challenge page. So here, I'll go back to the beginning. So you go into your My Collection tab, and then you click Let's Get Burning. And right now, there's nothing active because everything has been minted out, which we didn't state earlier, but that's positive as well. We've seen all 10 Titans mint their full 100. But so these icons that are done now, when they are still active, they'll be in that active tab, and you'll be able to, in your 10 minutes, go through all 5 of them if you so choose. And so just the quick summary with the visual here is that both of our understanding was that the first come first serve queue, you work through the queue, then you get into burning your Titan. I thought that once you got in there, you had your spot saved for 10 minutes to execute on that. But it turns out that if 100 get minted out while you're still checking off all of your players, you will get beat to it. So that's worth noting. That's a spot where, like I had said a bunch of times before, it's possible that having an epic instead of 17 cores could be faster. In this situation, it is. That being said, the process of selecting your players, especially the players of the particular Titan, is very, very fast. So checking off those 17 players, it's a fluid process, but it is slower than clicking one epic and a rare. So it just is. But yeah, to me, it doesn't make sense that somebody would be able to get 2 before somebody could get 1. I have no problem with somebody getting 2 if they are on the ball and they get through the queue fast enough a second time. That's fine. But it shouldn't. You shouldn't have somebody getting 2 when somebody has gotten none. It just shouldn't work that way. The queue should be better set up. And yeah, it's it's a learning curve. It's
To be clear, though, I think most people agree that you shouldn't be able to get 2 of the same player. For someone who's
yes.
managed to amass a large enough collection that they have 51 points of Turner and 51 points of Cabrera, and if they've got enough for everybody, then yes, once they're in, let them get 1 of each, while supplies last. Because that's them doing their preparation to not need any more points. They've already done their homework. They've already made their purchases. They're ready to go at the beginning of the burning. Let them get 1 of each. But then at that point, it's, pretty much everyone agrees it should be straight to the back of the line, get in the queue. And if there's enough for seconds, then have another crack at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for that portion of it, and good, thank you for the clarification there. But yeah, to that point, the 10 minutes works. 10 minutes is enough time that you could get through all 5 of these. I think if you're moving quickly, you'd have to be moving quickly for sure. I was lollygagging a little bit. I thought that I had more time. I probably got lucky that I didn't miss out on my Buxton or Mancini while I was recording. But yeah, I have no problem with people quickly going through and getting all 5 of them. If you've prepped, you should be able to do that. You should not be able to get 2 of the same guy before somebody who wanted 1 could get their first one. So jumping back to the list here. In that process, once you get through the queue and you start to burn, in order to move quickly through that, in order to have a chance at potentially getting all 5 in that 10-minute window, you need to know who your 49 points are for the remainder of your burn. So it makes it very easy with the actual Titan itself. Those are separated off to the top and you can quickly check those off. But then you have to manually go through, and there's a good search function. You can search guys by name. But if you've got a collection with hundreds of collectibles in it, you have to have an idea of what you want those cards to be. So I had a list of 49 points prepared. I was not expecting to have 2 Titans on Monday. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. I should have been prepared for that, but I wasn't. That was stupid. So I was just going off of our premise of, going with guys that have cores that aren't getting Titans and just trusting that across the board it was going to be the right selections. But it also slowed me down. So knowing what 49 points you're going to use, going through and understanding, and whether it's just haphazardly picking them or going and making sure that you're using 50-cent cores, it's beneficial to have an idea of what you want to burn before you go in there so that you can search it. And I recommend, if you haven't burned a Titan yet, to go watch that 15-minute video that I put out so that you see what it looks like. And this was visible on the tutorial that Candy put out as well. I just recorded mine so that it was a little bit more of the real feel of what that process looked like. But get an idea of what that looks like so that you have an idea when you move in there. I don't know if you had any issues with it or anything positive. Again, I felt that it was very smooth once you got into the burning process.
Yesterday, I tried to craft a Titan. I wasn't sure if I was going to because I knew I had enough points to craft a Mancini. And just before I clicked confirm and burn, finish that process, because at that point I still thought I was locked in. I got into his burn page. I thought my spot was reserved. So I spent a minute or two to take screenshots of the process, just to have some information ready, just to have something to show for it. And then I see a notification from Discord: Mancini has hit 100. He's minted out. I clicked confirm like just a second after that, and I got an error message: no longer in stock. And so I was one of the unfortunate examples of what not to do, because I had thought that my spot in line was locked in once I got to his burn page, and at least currently that is not the case. So, the process was smooth. It worked easily. I was able to search players easily. That was all fine. It was just unfortunate that I wasn't able to get one in spite of that.
Which moves us into bullet point number 4, which is move quickly for now. So at the moment, you do need to move through this process. And honestly, no matter what they switch it to, if you're trying to make multiple Titans in a day, you're probably going to want to have haste be part of your process. If you're just looking to burn one Titan and you get in right at the front of the queue when it drops at, it was 12:50 in theory this past week, you're probably fine. But if you are a little bit late to the game, or if you are looking to burn multiple Titans, you do need to move relatively quickly right now. But not so quickly that you overburn, which is something that I did, a mistake that I made. So if you go back and watch the video, you can see on my Buxton burn, I clicked a guy that brought me to 100 points, and then I clicked another core that brought me to 103, and then I burned everything because I was paying attention to hitting 49 points below and not accounting for the fact that I had gained an additional point up above, and I wasn't looking at the total counter out of 100. I was looking at the two halves, and just trying to fill those buckets. So I moved a little bit too quickly. I was also recording. I wasn't over analyzing it all, and I also wasn't sure if I was under the gun. So I was just moving quickly, and in the end, I'm glad I did, because that core was worth getting that Buxton if that was the difference. But it does not stop you from overburning. Why that's the case, not exactly sure. Feels like it'd be fairly simple for it to say, stop, you've added too many. But in current form, that's how it is. So if you put 500 points in there, it's going to let you burn it. So as you're clicking through, watch the counter at the bottom and make sure that you're not burning too many cards. Again, burning 103 with an extra core that was worth 50 cents, not the end of the world, not worried about it. But these are the little things that add up over time and just things worth knowing about. So to me, front to back, that was kind of my reflections on the process overall.
Well, and I thought about mentioning earlier too. It says know your 49, but I thought maybe it should say know your 49 or 48, because in the event that you're burning an epic, it's not possible to burn only 51 points. You're going to hit at least 52, and so you're only going to need 48 other points in that case that you'll hit with 16 cores instead of 17. But yeah, as long as you've got your list of your burn material prepared ahead of time, it is pretty seamless to knock those points out as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Having an idea of both of your burn piles prior to getting in there is what you should be doing. It's what I will be doing going forward. I am this week going to make batches of 49 points. And to your point, I'm going to identify which guys I'm burning with epics and which guys I'm burning without epics. Because without, you can get to the 51, and with the epic, you can't. You got to be at 52. So those are the spots where the little things add up. None of it's a huge deal. Nothing worth crazy over sweating. Although definitely frustrating to be you in that moment, thinking that you were locked in, only to see them mint out. But these are the early days of minting Titans. There are always going to be learning curves. There are always going to be challenges. As part of these things, we've learned that along the way. We understand that. We've all taken our lumps. We've all gotten frustrated. We've all gotten wins. We've all had good days too, right? So it's just keeping it all in perspective. It's remembering that these are collectibles. It's not huge stuff that needs to be, we don't need to be getting too upset over it, but we learn from our mistakes, push forward, and enjoy the process along the way.
And I would have been more upset if it was someone I cared about more. But if it was someone I cared about more, then I wouldn't have been dragging my feet to begin with. I would have been one of the first ones in the queue.
Yeah.
So it would have been a non-issue in that case. It was just this kind of halfway, do I want one or not, that I ended up being far enough back that it mattered. But it is worth noting that one thing that they've mentioned is doing away with the first come first serve queue and implementing a random queue. And so even being ready during that 10-minute window might not guarantee that you're at the front of the line. You could be anywhere in that case. But if they have that 10 to 15 minute buffer before the burning starts, we might be getting randomly placed in queue as early as next week if that random queue is ready.
That's
so
interesting.
We'll put that
How could that be? How could that be fully random? Is it random in buckets? Is it randomized for the first 10 minutes and then the second 10 minutes? Or is somebody coming in at minute 15 at the same spot of potentially getting pulled in as somebody that got in at minute 2?
If it's like how other sites work, they just have like the waiting room, before everything kicks off. And if you're in that waiting room, if we consider that first 10 minutes the waiting room, then it gets randomized as things go live. And then at that point, it's first come, first serve.
Gotcha.
You're at the back of the line. But it would just be that front bucket getting randomized.
Okay.
Now, and I talked a lot earlier about how things currently work. But if I can get on my soapbox again for a second, how I would like it to work is for them to put the queue in a different spot on the process. Because to me, and I think you would agree, it doesn't make sense at all that the queue is to get into the challenges page. Because some people who don't even want to burn are just trying to get on that challenges page to see how many are left. They just want to view that process as a spectator, and putting the queue there to get to page 1 where you can't even do anything doesn't make a lot of sense. And then once you're on the challenges page where you can see the 5 different players, they each have a view details button. And when you click on that, that takes you to a second page where you can buy extra copies if you don't have enough. Or if you do have enough, then you can go to a third page where you actually do the burning. And so I don't think there should be a queue at all to get to the challenges page, because some people just want to be there and you can't burn anything from there anyways. And when you click on view details where you can purchase extra copies or make sure you have enough, you can't burn there either. So I don't see why they would need to limit how many people are on that page. But then if you have a queue to get to the actual burn page, you could actually throttle how many people are on that page at a time and actually at least hold someone's spot when they reach that page, or just have a very small number of people burning at one time once they get to, once they have a player that they have 51 points of and actually get onto that final page where the burning actually occurs. And so I just think it's an issue of them putting the gate in the wrong spot. You move it a couple spots over, and a lot of these problems disappear.
Yeah, I agree. Fully agree. I think that, and even just a positive spin on it, is that add to the fanfare. People want to track this. Put that information somewhere that's like on the front page that people can actively track. That's cool information. Anybody that's in this space, a lot of people that are in this space enjoy the data. They want to know the numbers. They want to know what's happening, even if they're not doing it. I talked about it last week. I wasn't minting any of those guys, but I was paying attention to what was getting minted because I thought it was cool. So let's allow for that. Let's not create an obstacle for people that are trying to mint, and let's make it path of least resistance for people that want to just celebrate what's happening. So 100% agree with you. But again, to be expected that we would see some challenges in this process in the first couple weeks. This is a startup company. They haven't done anything like this. This is a brand new concept, and to me, it's all about how they adapt, how they react, and what it looks like in a week or two. So let's hope to see some improvements next Monday the 1st. Let's look forward to the pack drop on the 2nd for all of us getting early access with our Titans. Make sure you get a Titan in your collection. Mint something next week. But with that, my name is Nate. That's David. This is the Talking Candy Weekly Update, and we will see you in the next one.